What if the Jedi Council couldn't pay Ki-Adi-Mundi's child support? What would happen then? We pick up with the Jedi High Council discussing a matter of extreme importance, their annual financial reports. Let's begin. The Coruscant sunlight filtered through the high windows of the Jedi High Council chamber. The full council, including Anakin, had assembled, their expressions uniformly grave as they contemplated the holographic display rotating in the center of the circular room. Financial projections spun before them, columns of numbers cascading downward in alarming crimson. "Good, this does not look," Yoda muttered, squinting at the holographic balance sheet. The ancient master tapped his Geimer stick against the floor, a nervous habit he'd developed over centuries of institutional budget meetings. In truth, he had no comprehension of the financial intricacies, but acknowledging such ignorance would compromise his carefully cultivated mystique. The Order's financial statements, which included income statements, balance sheets, cash flow analyses, and capital allocation reports, had deteriorated steadily since the Senate Ethics Committee had prohibited force-assisted financial speculation 3 centuries prior. That amendment had passed with overwhelming support after a Jedi Master had manipulated futures markets to corner galactic wheat commodities. Anakin Skywalker reclined in his seat, fingers moving rapidly across his comlink. The corner of his mouth twitched upward at regular intervals as messages from Senator Amidala appeared on his screen. "These unnecessary expenditures cannot continue," Mace Windu declared, manipulating the hologram to highlight specific line items. The Kashyyyk Wookiee Upliftment Program glowed crimson in the projection, its financial failure radiating through the chamber like a toxic cloud. The program, Yoda's brainchild, had begun as a supposed humanitarian effort to elevate Wookiee civilization through instruction in Galactic Basic. In reality, it served as an elaborate mechanism to coerce the primitive species into cultivating Lunaweed, a narcotic that commanded astronomical prices in Republic space. "The Kashyyyk operation has yielded precisely zero return on investment," Windu continued, his tone carrying the weariness of one who had predicted this outcome from inception. The operation had collapsed spectacularly when Master Pong Krell, dispatched to oversee the project, inexplicably integrated himself into Wookiee society. He adopted their customs, mastered their bow weapons, and ultimately betrayed the Order's interests by organizing resistance among the tribes. This ended up forcing the Jedi Cartel's forces out of the planet. The solution had been obvious: orbital strikes to eliminate resistance and reclaim the investment. But the escalation of the Clone Wars had diverted every capital ship capable of planetary bombardment to frontline operations. Now, adding insult to injury, the Wookiees had descended into intertribal warfare over newly discovered aquatic territories or something, making the entire zone economically inaccessible. Yoda's ears twitched as he shifted in his seat. The Wookiee debacle remained a sore point for the Grand Master, whose financial projections had promised substantial returns. "Continue you should, Master Windu," Yoda said. Mace manipulated the hologram further, isolating a substantial financial outflow marked with Ki-Adi-Mundi's identifier. But here lies our most pressing concern. Master Mundi's family support allocations have increased 22% year over year. Master Mundi straightened. "My cultural obligations, 5 wives and 7 children, Windu cut in, with educational requirements, housing allocations, and transportation subsidies that exceed the annual operational budget of our temple on Elam." Ki-Adi-Mundi's elongated cranium twisted into a strained, uncomfortable expression. "The council approved these arrangements. The continuation of my species, a choice you had," Yoda interjected, ears pivoting forward. "Required to produce offspring, you were not. With respect, Master Yoda, the council explicitly permitted if the council told you to jump into a reactor core, would you?" Yoda asked. The chamber fell silent. Several council members exchanged puzzled glances, while Anakin stifled a laugh at something on his device. Obi-Wan stroked his beard. "I believe what Master Yoda means is that the rules governing family exemptions were perhaps too liberally interpreted in this case." "Broken rules are meant to be," Yoda declared, momentarily forgetting where he'd intended to take the conversation, likely due to the death sticks that had kept him awake for 6 days straight at this point. He pivoted and pointed directly at Anakin. "Like Skywalker, married he is without permission." Anakin's head jerked upward, his comlink nearly slipping from his fingers. "Master Yoda, I don't—" "Everyone knows," Yoda continued, "from young Jar Jar Binks to younglings who joined the Order this morning. Care about it, no one does." Anakin's mouth opened, then closed without articulating a response. "Proud of you I am, Skywalker. Unlike Kenobi, a disappointment he is," Yoda finished. Obi-Wan blinked. "I beg your pardon." "A Mandalorian queen you had," Yoda said, his voice rising. "Leave her for the Order you did. So here you sit, alone and miserable." Laughter erupted around the chamber. Even Anakin couldn't suppress a grin. "A disappointment you are," Yoda continued, pointing his stick at Obi-Wan. I followed the Jedi code, Obi-Wan protested, his composure slipping. I made the appropriate sacrifice. Copium, that is, Yoda interrupted. Some of that copium I could use for my hair loss. The chamber dissolved into undignified laughter. Even Ki-Adi-Mundi momentarily forgot his financial predicament as he observed Obi-Wan's reddening face. Mace Windu raised a hand, restoring order. The child support payments remain our primary concern. He manipulated the hologram, highlighting projections that showed an exponentially increasing financial obligation. Master Mundi, the Order cannot sustain these payments indefinitely. Yoda's ears perked up suddenly, his eyes narrowed, and a calculating expression settled across his ancient features. The council members recognized this look, the emergence of his strategy that would either prove brilliant or catastrophic, with little middle ground. A solution I have, Yoda announced. The council members waited expectantly. Fake Mundi's death we will. Ki-Adi-Mundi's jaw slackened. What? Brilliant, Master Plo Koon declared, his vocabulary emitting an enthusiastic tone. Impossible, Obi-Wan countered. The ethical implications alone. Ethical implications didn't concern you when abandoning your Mandalorian girlfriend, Anakin muttered, earning a glare from his former master. Yoda slapped his knees in delight. Discuss the details we must. A convincing death, it must be. The plan coalesced with surprising speed. They would arrange for someone to impersonate a Sith in the industrial sector, wielding a red lightsaber. Ki-Adi-Mundi would bravely confront this Sith, and a conveniently timed explosion, along with a loss of communication signal, would convince the galaxy that Master Mundi had perished in combat. No more family support payments. Problem solved. The council members nodded their agreement. Hours later, Shakti, Obi-Wan, and Anakin found themselves at Dex's diner, recruiting a disheveled Zabrak they discovered outside the establishment. They wrapped dark fabrics around his face, splattered red paint across his makeshift mask, and dubbed him Darth Hatred, a name Obi-Wan was proud of. Perform this test, Shakti explained to the confused Zabrak, and the Jedi Order will take you in. Plus death sticks, Anakin added, dangling a package before the man's bloodshot eyes. The Zabrak shrugged. Whatever. The industrial sector's abandoned quadrant loomed in the Coruscant twilight, its skeletal structures silhouetted against the endless cityscape. Within this sector, they had selected an empty manufacturing complex for the staged confrontation. Security cameras had been reprogrammed to capture just enough footage for plausibility while conveniently malfunctioning during critical moments. Yoda supervised the final preparations, his hover chair gliding through the makeshift command center established in a building next to the manufacturing complex. He approached the Zabrak, who now stood draped in the dark garments, hood obscuring his horned head. Authentication this requires, Yoda declared, producing a utility belt with an attached pouch, a Sith Lord always prepared with tools of destruction. The Zabrak secured the belt around his waist. Feels heavy. Components for improvised weaponry, Yoda explained. Authentic, it will appear. The ancient master returned to the monitoring station, joining the council members as the Zabrak departed for his position in the abandoned facility, where the staged confrontation would take place. Ki-Adi-Mundi adjusted his lightsaber, mentally rehearsing the choreography they had established: approach, engage briefly, retreat into the structure, then exit through the concealed passage, while remote detonation created the necessary pyrotechnics. Communications check complete, came Mace Windu's voice through the secure channel. Master Mundi, proceed to entry point. From their monitoring position, the council observed as Ki-Adi-Mundi mounted his Jedi speeder and departed for the confrontation site. Master Mundi's speeder approached the landing platform of the abandoned facility where Darth Hatred waited. From their command center in the neighboring building, the council watched through security feeds as Mundi made his arrival. The Zabrak observed the approaching Jedi Master from his position on an elevated gantry. His crimson training saber hummed with modified intensity, designed to appear threatening while remaining essentially harmless. Mundi entered the manufacturing complex, footsteps echoing through the cavernous space. The choreography proceeded precisely as planned. A brief exchange of lightsaber flourishes captured by the sole operational security camera, followed by Mundi's tactical retreat into the depths of the facility. Clear of the blast radius, Mundi's voice reported through the communication system. Proceed with detonation sequence. Yoda nodded with satisfaction and pressed the detonator trigger. The assembled council members leaned forward in anticipation. Nothing happened. Yoda's ears twitched with confusion. He pressed the trigger again and again. Silence filled the command center. Anakin finally looked up from his comlink. Did something go wrong? The Grandmaster jabbed at the device repeatedly, his diminutive fingers becoming more insistent with each failed attempt. What in the name of the Force is happening? Yoda demanded. finally looking away from the malfunctioning detonator. Mace Windu's expression transformed into one of exasperation. Master Yoda, perhaps you should look at the surveillance feed. Through the holo display, they observed the Zabrak opening the utility belt pouch that Yoda had given him. Instead of explosives, he pulled out several death sticks and began casually consuming them, leaning against a support column. Yoda's eyes widened as realization crashed over him. "Oh shit," he exclaimed, his vernacular deteriorating with stress. "The wrong pack I gave him. The real pack is..." In the High Council chamber, Jocasta Nu prowled between the circular arrangement of seats. The archivist had initiated her own investigation after noticing financial discrepancies in the Order's records, particularly those concerning questionable transactions authorized by Master Yoda. According to the temple schedule, a closed security session remained in progress, but Jocasta knew better. The council members had vanished, likely to one of the narcotic establishments in the lower levels that catered to those seeking chemical diversions from reality. Their absence provided the perfect opportunity to gather evidence, something concrete she could present to the Senate, and finally expose Yoda and his accomplices for what they truly were. She paused by Yoda's council seat, noticing something behind it. A small bag rested against the ornate backing, partially concealed by shadows. Jocasta knelt to examine it, finding several items inside, including a standard-issue Jedi utility pouch. As she lifted this pouch, a soft beeping sound emanated from within, the last sound Jocasta knew would ever hear before her universe ceased to be. The explosion tore through the council chamber, shattering the panoramic windows and sending debris cascading into Coruscant's upper atmosphere. Emergency systems throughout the temple activated instantly. Alarms blared across all communication channels. Back at the Industrial Sector Command Center, the council members stared in stunned silence at the emergency notification that flashed across their screens. Explosion in council chamber. Casualties reported. The council chamber, Obi-Wan said slowly. The timing couldn't have been more perfect or disastrous. They had deliberately scheduled this operation during what appeared in the temple logs as a closed security session, with attendance confirmations automatically transmitted from their comlinks. The temple security system had registered all council members as present in the chamber, exactly as they'd arranged, to ensure their covert mission would proceed without interruption. The explosive components Yoda had assembled were military-grade thermal detonators, designed to leave no trace of organic matter. Even if they had actually been in the chamber, the blast would have atomized their bodies completely. Mace Windu's eyes narrowed as comprehension dawned. According to official records and security protocols, dead. We all are, Yoda finished, his wrinkled face lighting up with an expression that shifted rapidly from horror to calculation. The thermal signature of the explosion would have triggered automatic protocols. With no remains to recover, the Republic would officially list them as presumed dead, standard procedure for catastrophic detonations within secure facilities. No one would know for sure if they had perished. Ki-Adi-Mundi's voice came through the comms again, a note of urgency evident. Masters, my datapad just received an alert. Our presumed deaths have been officially announced to the public. A moment of silence followed as the council members processed this information. The Zabrak is in no condition to be moved, Mundi continued, glancing at the impersonator, who had slumped into a chemical-induced stupor against the wall. Perhaps the council should convene here to discuss our unexpected circumstances. Mace Windu's agreement came swiftly. Agreed. All council members, proceed to Mundi's location. We must evaluate this development immediately. The entire council had assembled in the same industrial complex where Mundi was supposed to have perished. They gathered in a circular formation, mirroring their customary arrangement in the now destroyed council chamber. The Zabrak sat slumped against a wall, occasionally sipping from his dwindling supply of death sticks. No one knew about this mission, Mundi reiterated, his elongated cranium catching the dim light. As far as the Republic is concerned, we all died in that explosion. We're free, Plo Koon said, his vocabulary conveying an unusual note of wonder. Free to do what, Master? Anakin asked, though his eyes held a gleam that suggested he already understood the implications. Mundi gestured expansively. Free to use our skills as we see fit, to gamble, to profit, to live unburdened by regulations. The council members exchanged glances as the realization dawned on each of them. No more administrative duties, no more political entanglements, no more war. No more Kashyyyk bullshit, Yoda added, nodding emphatically. No more regulations, Obi-Wan said, his thoughts clearly elsewhere. No more pretending we understand what Yoda is saying, Kit Fisto whispered to Ajen Kolar, who suppressed a snicker. One by one, their faces brightened with the possibilities before them. They could finally live their lives without the crushing weight of Jedi obligations. The Zabrak staggered toward them, clutching the last of his death sticks. Am I a Jedi now? He slurred, eyes unfocused beneath his makeshift Sith disguise. Soon, Obi-Wan came to his senses and went to Mandalore. Satine welcomed him with open arms, and they lived happily ever after. Meanwhile, Anakin rushed to Padme, who was mad he hadn't let her fake his death. For years, she'd been secretly breaking women who resembled her out of Naboo prisons and faking their deaths, and then hiring them as her handmaidens. It was Padme's peculiar hobby. She stayed mad for a bit that Anakin hadn't included her in his plan, but they eventually reconciled, and lived happily ever after. Masters Windu, Yoda, Kit Fisto, Shakti, and Mundi started an investment firm and kept Darth Hatred as an intern. The other masters began similar endeavors, and finally got actual speaking scenes. Palpatine saw the news, believed the Jedi Council had died, laughed like a maniac, choked on his expensive Toydarian steak, and died. Yoda sensed Palpatine's death, got distracted, crashed into a speeder and died too, but came back as a Force ghost, so he was fine. They all lived happily ever after. The end.